Back in the early stages of the coronavirus lockdown, I put the Little Tikes Cozy Coupe to the test in my living room because, in some respects, it's the best-selling car in Britain. That, and it was the only car I could get my hands on because no one was allowed to drive real cars on real roads. But with the second wave just around the corner,
boy, that hasn't aged well.
And likely a second lockdown,
and neither has that.
I thought this was the perfect time to drive Britain's actual best-selling motor car, the Ford Fiesta. It's been hugely popular for decades and is still the #1 bestseller in the UK, with 39,000 examples registered in 2020 alone. So today I'm going to find out what makes the Fiesta Britain's best-selling car. But before I get into the review, remember to like the video and subscribe to the channel because we've got plenty more in-depth reviews like this and much, much more. The latest generation Fiesta is arguably the best-looking version of the Super Mini to date. That's not to say the previous generations were hard on the eyes, far from it, but this new model strikes the balance of blending premium looks without being flashy. Our Fiesta looks a little bit different to the ones further down the range because it's an ST-Line X edition. So aside from the badges on the side of the car, the big giveaway here is that the grille is a little bit thinner and it's got these bits that stick down either side of it. The front bumper is also a little bit more angular and more aggressive, so it matches that of the ST. That's why it's called an ST-Line. The last thing I want to talk about with the Fiesta's design is the move away from vertical taillights to horizontal ones. Well, so what? Big deal, right? Well, there is actually a point behind it. Vertical ones make the car look narrower. Put horizontal ones on and it widens the design. Obviously the car's not actually wider, but it just gives the impression that you're driving something bigger than you actually are.
Prices start from £16,640, but our ST-Line X edition comes in at £22,085. This particular model comes with a 1.5 litre 3-cylinder turbo motor, but this engine option is now only available on the full-fat ST. The rest of the range comes with either a 1 or 1.1 litre turbo engine, with some 1 litre models sporting a 48-volt mild hybrid system.
The Fiesta has 292 litres of boot space, which admittedly is actually quite small. If you take the Volkswagen Polo, for instance, you have over 350 litres, and you get a little bit more on the Seat Ibiza. Even the Vauxhall Corsa has a slightly bigger boot than what you get on the Fiesta. Another thing that might turn off a few people is that you've got quite a high load lip, so if you're pulling out a suitcase, it might be a little bit more difficult. However, you can spec a relatively inexpensive variable floor, which means that you can raise the floor to eliminate the load lip. And if you want a bit more space, you simply just put it back down again. I kept wondering why the door kept clunking every time I opened it. It sounded like it was broken, but I've just discovered that when you pull it open, there's a little retractable guard that pops out to protect the door if you're in a tight space. That's a great idea. Even the cheapest models in the lineup get Ford's 8-inch infotainment screen powered by its Sync 3 software. Now the software itself is nice and simple, it's intuitive to use. If a little bit dull, it's not exactly the flashiest software on there, nor does it feel the most high-tech, but the important thing is it's really responsive and it's nice and clear. However, if you don't like the system, you could always just hook up your smartphone and use either Apple CarPlay or Android Auto, both of which come as standard. Crucially though, all the areas that you're going to be touching feel of a pretty high quality. So in the ST line, we have a slightly sportier steering wheel wrapped in leather and it feels lovely. The gear selector is also wrapped in leather, which is nice, as is the handbrake. And again, in this ST line, we have part leather seats. You do get a soft touch surface on top of the dashboard, but there are some cheaper plastics around here, such as in the center console and also in part of the doors. It's not too bad, but it just doesn't feel as nice as something like a Polo. Storage is pretty decent. In the center console, I've got 2 cup holders with little grips, so if you're racing around on a B road, your cup's not going to go flying out. Under the armrest, you've got a little tray, which I guess you could put your house keys in, and there's a much bigger bin underneath that with a USB connector. Speaking of USBs, I've got a second one down here in the center console, which sits opposite a 12-volt charger. And in this model, we also have wireless phone charging too. There is storage in the door, it's just really well hidden, and it will take a decent sized bottle. The Fiesta is a small car, so it's always going to be quite tight in the back. Nevertheless, it really is a bit of a squeeze back here. So I'm 180 centimetres and headroom is, well, there's not a lot to play with really. We have the panoramic roof installed, which does lower the height of the roof somewhat, but even without that, it would still be pretty tight back here. And the same goes for legroom. The driver's seat's in my position and my knees are rubbing the backs of the seat. So if you're 6 foot, it's going to be quite cramped back here. The good news is there's a very small bump in the floor, so if you're sat in the middle, you're still going to be able to put your legs either side, but again, it's going to be cramped back here. This model doesn't come with an armrest, so there's nothing to put your drinks in apart from these very small door bins, and ISOFIX points are hidden within the seat, so you've got to feel around for them for a bit, but they are there. In the centre console here, there's no air conditioning or connectivity, it's just a little bin. Not really sure what you could put in there. Maybe you could use it to store glasses. Yeah, that works well. So it's not the most practical in its class. It doesn't have all that much space in the back. It's got a reasonably nice cabin, but it's not class leading. So why is the Fiesta so popular then? Well, I was hoping I'd find my answer behind the wheel, and I have. This is such a wonderful car to drive. Now, I really shouldn't talk to you about steering, because let's face it, the Fiesta is a car for everybody. It's not just a car for driving enthusiasts. However, you'll find a lot of cars in this price bracket, when you get behind the wheel, have very, very loose steering systems. That doesn't mean that when you turn, the wheels don't turn, far from it. They can be very precise, but they feel incredibly light, and it's almost as though you're steering with a Nintendo Wii wheel instead of something that's actually connected to a car. And that's what has really impressed me with the Fiesta so far. The steering system in this is the same kind of system you'll find in any new car today. It's electronically assisted. However, it's got so much feel. There's a nice weight to it that makes it feel like when you're turning the car, you're turning a vehicle rather than a shopping trolley. Now, that might not be for everybody. You might want your car to feel as easy as possible, but in my opinion, the more feedback that you get, and adding a little bit of weight to steering just allows you to be more confident with your inputs. So I'm really impressed. This little 3-cylinder motor sips away at fuel. It's incredibly frugal. I've been spending a fair amount of today on both motorways and rural country roads. However, I've been averaging around 50 mpg, which isn't too bad when the claimed mpg, according to Ford, is about 52 to 53 on an ideal cycle. So what about the ride? Because some people say the ST-Line is a bit on the firm side, and I've been over some roads that'll usually shake cars to pieces, but I found this Fiesta has dealt with them superbly. There's been some really nasty bumps in the road that I've driven over, and they're very nicely damped out. Yes, you notice them, but they're very, very muted, and they don't intrude in the cabin whatsoever. I do understand why some people say it's firm, but I don't think it's unpleasant. Another thing I want to point out is that this car has a suite of semi-autonomous modes, so if I'm driving down the motorway and I whack the cruise control on, it'll monitor the car in front of me, and if they brake, I'll brake along with them. You also get autonomous emergency braking. But here's the problem though. On a car this high up the Ford Fiesta ladder, the ST-Line X Edition, I would expect that to come as standard, but no, it's a £550 optional extra. And that's a little disappointing. So why is the Fiesta Britain's best-selling car? Well, I can think of a few reasons. First of all, I think it is really well equipped. No matter which model you go for, you're getting that 8-inch infotainment screen with Sync 3 and Apple CarPlay and Android Auto connectivity. And that's a really big deal. A lot of people just want to get in their car, plug in their phone, listen to music and use the Waze app. And you can do that with all of the Fiestas. The next is to do with tax. Ford's been pretty clever, and they've been able to squeeze in the more powerful engines into the same bracket as the least powerful ones. So really, no matter which one you go for, you're going to be paying the same price in tax. And now that they're introducing a hybrid version, it should make them a pretty enticing pick for company car buyers. I also think there's an element of iPhone syndrome. So when the latest iPhone comes out, people tend to just go out and buy it. There may be better smartphones out there, more powerful ones with more features, but people like what they know. And if you were really happy with your previous iPhone, why would you go for something else? Just go and buy the new iPhone. And I think the same can be said for the Ford Fiesta. I also think we're a nation of drivers. No, that doesn't mean you can go up to grandma and start talking to her about suspension geometry, unless your grandma's down for that, in which case you've got a wicked grandma. But the Fiesta is known as a driver's car, and I can completely see why now that I've got behind the wheel of one. It certainly beats the Little Tykes Cozy Coupe, which is cheaper.